Welcome to Soulful Scrutiny. With me in the studio today is a published author, Maureen King Anthony. And Maureen just recently published a beautiful book called The Day My Daddy Died. And we wanted to bring her into the studio to kind of discuss some of the social and psychological impact of children who lose their father. The story is actually about a young girl who lost her dad and what the dad meant to her and the impact of that on her life, etc. Not so much the impact on her life, but her reminiscing about what the value of the father in her life, and one could imagine the void that leaves. So welcome to Soulful Scrutiny.
Thank you, Trish, for having me on.
You're welcome. I just give the audience a generalization of who you are as a person regarding the book and so forth. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, as you mentioned, my name is Maureen King Anthony. I am a wife. I'm a mother of two children and a grandson. And I'm from a beautiful island in the Caribbean called St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Right.
And so really, I decided a few years ago to leave that beautiful island and come here to this wonderful country.
What time? How long have you been in this country?
I would say I left around 1988, so that will be like over 20 years,
Right.
or more.
Okay.
Almost going to 30. Right, and so I came here and I went back to school and started a business. And
What type of business is that?
well, I'm in early childhood education. I am the executive director of two early childhood educational centers in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn, okay.
Yes, so
That's basically you in a nutshell.
in a nutshell.
And so you wrote this beautiful book, and it's sad from the standpoint of the topic that's being discussed. But you wrote this book. What is this book about? The Day My Daddy Died. What is this book about? How did you came about writing this book?
Well, it's strange because in my field I am exposed to so many. I don't know if ills might be a right choice of words, but I see so many trauma daily. Not only parents of children fall short to being incarcerated, but dying, and even sometimes not having even the simple basic necessity as food. And so what really prompted me to write this book is there was this young man, great young man, and he was a father in one of our centers, and he would bring his child to school every day, and I would look at him. I think he was such an exemplary father in the sense that this little girl, I think she felt that she was the only child with a father, and so one morning I got to work and I heard someone said to me, the child's father, I would choose not to call her name,
right.
Is dead. And I said, what? Dead? How
Young
did that
in the
happen?
prime of life,
He
yes.
was very young. He was, I think, at the time, 28.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so he was very young. And the little girl, she at the time was 4 years old. And so that was heartbroken because she really adored her dad. And not that I had a book in view or in mind on the family, but one morning I just got up about 2 o'clock in the morning and I just couldn't stop penning my words.
So while the book is not a direct a her story, it influenced you to write this story because perhaps you realize that, wait a minute, in the inner cities especially, there are a lot of children suffering from this type of trauma.
And what I would say, not that, because again, I said because of my work, I've seen so many children lost their father to gun violence. I've seen that. And, I just couldn't understand. And as I said to you, this inspiration that overtook me then
Right.
just caused me, I guess, maybe that may have triggered.
It influenced
And
you
it,
to write it. Yeah.
right, maybe. But I just got up and I just
And
really
you wrote it.
started writing.
So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to have you do a reading of the
Okay.
book, and I'm going to show the picture, the corresponding picture, on my copy.
All right.
And this book is going to be in the store shortly. And you dedicated this book to all children who have lost their parents through gun violence and those who are supporting them,
Yes.
which I think is very touching. And you said, I would like to acknowledge my husband, Michael Anthony, who's in the studio with us today, my daughter, Marisha King, and my son, Murray King, for their support, and also K-Bon Covey, who is like a daughter to me and who has helped me to edit this book. The inspiration, I'm going to read this part for you.
Yes.
The inspiration for this book runs deep. It stems from a personal experience many years ago when one of my young students attending my daycare facility lost her father through gun violence. The experience was quite traumatic and impacted me as a caregiver and mother very deeply. Over the years, I continued to observe and witness the impact of gun violence on our young children. Watching how others go through this ordeal was devastating. It is my hope that readers will gain a better understanding and appreciation of the impact of gun violence, not just on the child, but the trickle-down effect on families and by extension the community. Many hearts are torn by the psychological and emotional trauma. If nothing else, it is my wish that this book will be used as a guide to introduce topics such as death and violence, especially in the early childhood development setting. Let the conversation begin. And we could see from the book that there's a picture of the father. You said it was customary that this person who influenced the writing of the book took his daughter to school each day. And so we saw this.
My name is Susie, and this is the story of my life with my daddy before he died. There is no pain like the pain you feel when you lose a parent. I was just 4 years old when my daddy died. But even though I was very sad to lose my daddy, I have many happy memories of him. I cannot forget the happy times I had with my daddy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then we're into this section.
Right.
And they're showing you that the dad, he'd get up every morning, she'd wake up to her father. So then we go to the next page.
My daddy would wake me up every morning with a big hug and a big kiss. Waking up with my daddy looking at me was the best part of my day. My daddy was always there to help me start my day right. He would lift me up and take me to the bathroom to brush my teeth. He taught me how to play different sports. He would comb my hair gently every day. It was just another part of our special time. My daddy always had a big smile on his face, and I did too, because I was always so happy when I was with my daddy. One Saturday morning, I woke up and my daddy was not there, smiling down at me. He was not there to wake me up with a big hug and a kiss. Instead, my mom was standing there. Her eyes were very sad when she looked at me. I looked up at my mommy and asked, "Where is my daddy?" She did not answer, so I repeated, "Where is my daddy?" My daddy always woke me up, so this was the first time that my daddy didn't wake me up. "Where is my daddy?" I asked my mom. My mom sat on a chair next to my bed with her chin in her hand. "I had some bad news," she said. She came over to my bed and sat next to me. She held me tight and started to cry. She cried and cried. Then she said to me, "Daddy is taking a long sleep. He will no longer be here with us." I jumped out of my bed and ran to my daddy and mommy's room, but my daddy was not in his bed. I ran back to my mommy and I asked, "Where is my daddy sleeping?" My mom took me in her arms and hugged me tight. I saw the tears roll down my mommy's face. I was confused and frightened. Why is my mommy holding me so tight and crying, I wondered? And why is my daddy not sleeping in his bed? Where is he? Please don't let anything bad happen to my daddy, I said to myself. Then my mom knelt beside me and said in a voice so low, "Daddy got hurt. He is dead. He will never come home again." She explained to me what death was. My mommy told me she was taking me to see my daddy. She told me my daddy was in a coffin, and she explained what a coffin was. I was really, really sad after my mommy explained all these things to me. One day my mommy took me to see my daddy's grave so I could put some flowers on it. I was very sad that I could not see my daddy again. I really, really miss my daddy. The end.
The end. Touching story. Touching story. And so, as someone who is a childcare provider, and like as we said earlier, in a city where this is a common occurrence, sad to say, do you see this book? What do you think would be a good place for this book?
Well, I think this book can be used in schools, which is one of what I dream would happen, that it would be used as...
In libraries?
Yes, and in libraries also. And even be used in school as an introductory to introduce...
The grieving process.
To children. Yes.
So let's say there is, for instance, a classmate that got hurt.
Yes.
That, or a family that's suffering from this, that perhaps they could see, well, this, as sad as this is, it does happen, and it's okay to feel the hurt and to try to walk through the issues.
And also, it is real, and I want children to also know, and families to know, that these things happen, and this story is a real story. And as sad as it might seems, it connects. It connects to the incident at hand, and I think it would be a great book to
libraries and the
introduce.
schools, because like you said, as sad as it is, it does happen.
Yes.
And so sometimes the most powerful thing is sometimes when we know that we're not the only one going through something.
Right.
Others have gone through it and have survived.
Right.
So I commend you for doing this work. I think it's a much needed discussion that needs to take place.
Right.
And I think also, just even from an adult reading it, it lets me see that the impact that violence have, the void that it leaves in the lives of the parents and the loved ones that have to try to pick up the pieces.
And even, Trish, not just the loved ones, because we are a community. So this it trickles way beyond.
Yeah, there's a father who's provided for his family. He's gone.
His
Mom may have to take 2 jobs, and the
Yes.
children are not properly supervised. This has quite some impact. Now you're doing a lot of stuff in addition to writing and running your early childhood centers. My understanding is you're getting ready to become one of our local politicians. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it has been in my heart, and it has been a dream that one day I will serve in a different capacity. And so I've decided, with the help of my family, which is my husband and my extended family, because you do need that support, you know, to go into running in 2017 for the city council position in the 41st Councilmanic District in Brooklyn, where I work and live.
Is that on a state level or is it local? I don't understand the politics here, even though I live here 27 years. So that is like a local area. You'll be representing a certain area. Right.
You have a geographic location in that Councilmanic District that you're responsible for once you're elected. And what part of what you will be doing is to make rules, laws, and if there are any situations that come up in your Councilmanic District that you're able to go and deal with them.
Well, having known you for a little while, I think you will be perfect for that position, and and I think you do great serving the people. You should be the person that they choose to run that to be in that office. So back to the book a little bit. Now you're from the Isle of St. Vincent, as you said earlier, and so am I. And I've known you for some time. Yes. You did publish a book with my publishing company, Ajani Publishing, but we knew each other way before that.
Yes.
I know, for instance, you have helped me with things like fundraisers for the Girl from the program that I do in St. Vincent. You've been very instrumental helping with fundraising, supporting us as well as helping to sell tickets and things like that. So you've been in the community doing things that benefit the Caribbean community and the children back in St. Vincent and Grenadines.
And I just want to add the work that you're doing there in St. Vincent and the Grenadines with the children there, teaching them the ancestral language and the music. It's awesome.
Well, yes. It's a pleasure to do it. I didn't do it last year, but I will be coming back and knocking on your door from selling tickets. So it's good. And I could continue. So you're doing some big things, and as a Caribbean person and someone who came to the idea of this television network because of the fact I feel in the Caribbean community in this country we're underrepresented. We're doing a lot of great things, but nobody hear about us. So we wanted to make have this be a network that makes people from the Caribbean more visible. Right. And you're certainly someone I think that's worthy of visibility because of some of the work you're doing. Right. And we certainly want to commend you and wish you luck with what you're doing. Now you're in the Brooklyn area, and you are going to be representing that community. Do you see yourself at some point going to St. Vincent's for running for politics there? Political office? Oh. I'm putting her in some hot sauce now.
I think once I'm elected here, and I do feel strongly that I am going to be elected, I have a great stake in the community in which I work and live, and I will fight hard.
So you're going to focus on here for right now?
Yes. So I'll fight hard to make sure that my focus is
that
right here. And in terms of going to St. Vincent to run, I think at that time I'll probably be too old.
Nah, you're not going to be cool.
Doesn't have the tenacity.
You know what? I don't think your people who are too young should be running for politics anyway.
Well,
I honestly think so. I think they just lack the maturity and the wisdom. So I don't think so. Nobody says anything about when the 70-year-old male are running. So I don't think.
I think there is a big disconnect between our generation and that age generation that's running these days and the counsel that they're given, you know. But I always seek counsel from my elders.
Okay, you know. That's always a good thing.
Yes,
because people don't realize when you're running for office, you're not just running for office for your own enrichment. You're actually there to serve people. Maureen King Anthony, The Day My Daddy Died: My Life with My Daddy Before He Died. A compelling and very touching story, and one that I recommend to anyone who is dealing with trauma, anyone who's dealing with young children that has been traumatized through a death of a loved one, a death of someone they're related to. It might be somebody in the schools. I recommend this book, The Day My Daddy Died. I think it's a touching story, and I think it's really interesting that you were sensitive enough to pick up, and this is, I think, the difference between someone who just has a business and someone who is in this profession of early childhood, because their love of children, that you would pick up on that and be able to say, well, you know what, this child is suffering, and I know there are other children. Let me write something
Right.
that would touch on that issue.
Right.
And so I don't think many people would have, a lot of people would have probably thought of that. So that was pretty deep.
Right. And I also think to the Trish, just to even tie into what you're saying, even as we are looking at the news where fathers dying through gun violence, you know, it just ties in. You see it in the media every single time you turn around. And you can turn your television on, it's a father that has fallen dead to gun violence. So it is, as I say, it's tangible, it's real, it's there. And I think that's why this book will be a great read for young children.
It definitely would be. And you know, here's the thing. We hear these things on the news, right?
Yes.
We hear these things on the news. We don't pay attention to these things in a personal way because it's not touching us. Right. It's when you have your child, when you have your loved one, and we don't stop and think of the social impact.
Oh yes.
The young girl who no longer has daddy to walk her to school, the young girl who now loses an income provider, the mother who loses her husband and who would have to either put it alone or have someone else come into the lives of those children who may not be as accepting of them. So this is something I think is a really big thing that happen in our community, and people don't pay attention to.
And not only that, the Trish, but the trauma. It's really a trauma. And you just touch on something that I also hold dear to my heart: step-parents. Because a lot of times, as you say, the dynamics, when someone is taken, especially your father, who you said is the breadwinner of
and your daughters to be protected, and now there's a step-parent.
And what I see most of the time is, again, sort of like the same phenomena here. You know, it's some men, that new man, that new father,
accepting.
they're not as accepting.
There's no one that's going to love you like your father or your mother.
Yes.
I don't care how much they love you. You have exceptions to the rule.
Yes.
You have good step-parents that could be better than a parent. But the norm is that the average man, nobody's going to be as protective against of his daughter like he would be.
Or children on a whole.
But you know, men and their daughters.
Yes.
So I think that's why this story kind of resonated with me in terms of not so much me. I had my dad until I was in my 40s, but in terms of resonating with me of just people who have known, who didn't have a father in their life, and kind of recognizing what they might have missed not having dad, and not being able to have those kind of things I took for granted growing up with my dad in the house. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think now your young charge who had this experience, were you able to follow her to have some idea how she turned out?
Yes, actually, I just saw her the day of election. That was November the 4th, I think. I saw her. And I stood on Eastern Parkway doing my civic duties. And not even thinking about her. And she came over to me, and I stood for a little while, and I looked at her. And now she's actually 16, and she said to me she's coming from Medgar Evers, high school. So I know that
she's in school and she's making something of her life.
Because her mom really stayed very focused too in her life. It was very, very traumatic for the mother. And even as I talk about that mom, around the same time, there were like 3 children that I know of that
was
lost,
doing it.
that had
was
lost
going through
their
the same
father.
thing. Yeah.
Yes. So I do know. For me, you see the hurt every day. And sometimes I wish that there is more that I can do, and that's why I know and hope that this book would really make millions of dollars, so that I can set up a fund for children,
those children
who have lost their parents through gun violence.
Okay, so look for this book in bookstores very soon, and on Amazon.com. The Day My Daddy Died, My Life with My Daddy Before He Died, by Maureen King Anthony. And as you heard it from the author herself, she would be donating proceeds from this book to benefit children that are affected by gun violence. And once again, I want to commend you for doing this walk, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful, touching, heartfelt story. And I think you living in the area that you're living really is a good thing, because it then allows you to be able to make a difference
Right.
in this issue that is so prevalent in our society.
Yeah.
So I thank you very much for coming into studio. Now let's talk back again a little bit about your political career. When is your campaign already in gear, or is it going to kick off at a certain time?
Well, actually, we have started some preparatory work, but today, around 5, the team is coming together so that we can start to concretely put things in place for January. So in January, we
That's a
kick
big
off
kickoff.
like a rocket.
And it'll be November of next year, 2017.
Well, the primary is in September.
Right.
So
okay.
I have to definitely make sure that I make the ballot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first you have to make sure you make the ballot, and then in November you're going to be
In the election.
You're going to be doing.
Once I make the ballot, I'll be a candidate.
You'll be a candidate.
Yes.
Okay. And we know that you will, because you're doing great things. I mean, we
Yes.
have other Caribbean people like Una Clark, who is representing country of Jamaica, and so of
Yes.
course we want to have our own representative in the Caribbean, not in your district, but if I was. You have my support, because you're a lady that I admire. I truly admire you. I think you're a very dynamic person, a very humble person, a very kind person, and I know that you will go on to do big things, whatever your future endeavors are.
Yes. But one of the things that Trish, I always say, I see myself as a servant first. Because when you can serve others, that's the bigger good in
That's the
this
bigger
life.
good.
Yes.
Because we live in a society where too often people are just about themselves and their immediate family.
Yes.
They don't see the big picture.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's good that when people that civic minded,
Yes.
that they want to serve the community and make a difference in the lives of others.
And even in the work that I do, I have to serve, because every day I see so many people that are in need, and you know, there's so many things that we do for our families, that we service, and not just the families, but for the community at large. You help the church, you know, you are there at the soup kitchen, and there's so many families. As much as this country is great and have all this money,
It also
there's
has a lot of needs.
Yes, there's so many people that are.
And you're in an area there that's going to really need that kind of attention.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I really commend you for doing it. I think if there's a person that I could pick to be involved in something like that, I think it would be you.
Thank
And
you.
we're very proud of you,
Thank you.
not just from St. Vincent and Grenadines, but the Caribbean, for being this person who is trying to take on this type of effort and this really brave stance to stand up for something and run for something.
Yes.
And we certainly believe that you're going to be really, really successful with this. And we want to see you back on Soulful Scrutiny
Yes.
after you have been elected.
Yes.
And we'll have discussions from time to time. So we want to consider you a friend of the network and a friend of the show.
Yes. Thank
All
you.
right. Do you have
Thank
anything else you
thank
want to say to your audience?
Well, I just want to thank you, Trish, and again, I want to thank my husband and my family, my immediate family, for standing with me every step of the way. You know.
That's important.
Yes.
That's important.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Maureen
Thank
King
you.
Anthony, for coming
Yes.
on Soulful Scrutiny. Thank you for watching this edition of Soulful Scrutiny, and we'll see you on the next edition. Thank you.
Thank you.